This is Bob Ambrogi, and welcome to Legal Tech in the Heartland. We're here at the Law Firm 500 conference just outside of Las Vegas, sponsored by How to Manage a Small Law Firm. And we're talking to lawyers about legal tech and their practices. I write the blog Law Sites. I also do the podcast Law Next and work with LexBlog as their editor-in-chief. And right now we're talking with Joe Peiffer. Joe, how are you today?
Doing great.
Good. Joe, where are you from?
Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
And what's your practice like in Cedar Rapids, Iowa?
Well, it's a very busy practice dealing primarily with debt restructuring and bankruptcy, primarily for farmers. My magic statement is I help farmers get creditors off their back, preserve assets, and minimize taxes.
Interesting. I guess I should know. I don't think of bankruptcy as a big issue with farmers, but of course it should be, right?
We have our own chapter called Chapter 12, and it's strictly for family farmers.
Yeah.
And 85% of my clients are farmers.
Interesting.
And right now with the trade wars going on, we have an awful lot of corn and soybean farmers and dairy farmers who are becoming collateral damage to the lower prices because of the trade war.
Yeah. Is it... how many people in your office? How many lawyers? Is it just you as the lawyer? Or?
I'm the only lawyer. I do have a contract lawyer that I probably get 5% of his time on, but it's me.
Yeah. You got paralegals and other support staff?
Yes, I have one supports. I have paralegal and a part-time office administrator, and then I also have what I call a chief financial strategist, who is a banker by training, and he banked for 30 years, and he runs the cash flows and balance sheets for all the business people that we have.
Yeah. So what are you using on a kind of day-to-day basis to run your practice? What's the software you're using?
Okay. To handle the input of bankruptcy cases, we use Best Case all the time. And I'm told they're going to go to a cloud version, which will be very helpful to us.
Yeah. There are cloud softwares out there, right? Have you ever looked at any of those cloud bankruptcy softwares?
Yeah. None of them do Chapter 12. It's very simple. They don't do Chapter 12, which is the bulk of my bankruptcy practice. I have no interest in them.
Yeah. So, but you would like Best Case to go to the cloud just for the convenience of being able to work?
Right. But we had something happen. Our internet went down week before last, and my staff was pretty well stymied because we use NetDocs to access our files. So our files are stored in the cloud. We use Clio for billing and other office management things. So my staff, while the internet was down, cleaned the office and answered the telephone. That was about all they could do.
Yeah.
Because the documents were not stored anywhere but in the cloud. Yeah. Unless they had something on a working file on their computers. So that's the one hesitation I have about Clio going, not Clio, but Best Case going to the cloud is if the internet's interrupted, I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's always, it hasn't happened frequently, but it's frustrating when it does happen.
Yeah. Interesting that you use NetDocs. I think NetDocs is sometimes perceived as a larger firm product, and yet I talk to a lot of solo and smaller firm lawyers who are using it. How did you decide to begin using that?
Well, I started the firm 2 years ago in July, left a firm I've been with for 16 and a half years, and I had a technology consultant work with me to help pick out what things would play well together. NetDocs has an integration with Clio. Clio has an integration with QuickBooks. Right. And then Lexicata has an integration with Clio and now has been purchased by Clio, I understand.
That's right.
And so part of my goal here was to find products that were designed to work together so that we could input data or information one time and not have to input it a number of times. Yeah. It gets very frustrating to input and re-input.
Yeah. So are you using Lexicata as well?
Yes. We started using Lexicata about 6 or 8 months ago.
All right.
And we use that to track the potential clients and move forward with that.
Yeah. And just 2 weeks ago, you're right. They were just Clio acquired Lexicata, announced it at their big conference down in New Orleans. I was there for the announcement.
One of my staff people was there as well, and I had her there to help us learn how we can more fully integrate Clio into our practice and use more of its management functions that we have not been using.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you and it's sort of your direct work? Where are you mostly in best case? What are you doing kind of day in and day out?
I am predominantly in a lot of email traffic, a lot of Word documents, a fair amount of PDF, getting things, finalizing things.
Ready to file.
Things that I'm using.
Yeah. How do you work with new intakes? Are you using Lexicata's intake form to kind of get the initial client information? And can you go from there into a best case or something, or how does that work?
Not yet.
No.
It may get there. They're not set up to work together yet.
Yeah.
And the bulk of what I do, we try to keep people out of bankruptcy as much as possible. If we can keep them out of bankruptcy, that's great.
Yeah.
So we don't start necessarily adding everything in that would go into a bankruptcy input. But early on, we're doing a lot of financial background work with balance sheets and cash flows. The financial strategists will do that and use that in Excel. I'll then look at that and see where we're going, and then we use that as a basis to negotiate before we, if we can't negotiate a deal that works, then we're going to move into a bankruptcy if that's the best case for them.
Yeah. What do you do when you have a tech support issue with your firm?
Well, my part-time office administrator, my son, handles a great number of those things for me, which is great. And if he can't get it done, then we do have a tech support service that we utilize, and they're usually able to get in relatively quickly and take care of things for us.
Yeah. Are there any particular tools or techs that just you find really help you in your practice on a day-to-day basis, whether law-related or not? I mean, is there stuff that you just really rely on a regular basis?
Can't say specifically. I do, I love things when I like the organizational features that we have within NetDocs and the full search capabilities. We can either search by title of a document or by full text search, because everything that comes in gets scanned and OCR'd so we can see it all.
Yeah.
And that way, if something gets misfiled in your file instead of John's file, I don't have a problem. I can generally find it by putting in a word that I expect would be in it, and it will pop up, and then we'll move it back where it ought to be.
Yeah.
Much better than the Explorer looking back through that Microsoft, and how you can easily move a whole series of files and drop them in the wrong place by mistake and never be able to find them again.
Yeah. You mentioned you started the firm 2 years ago after leaving somewhere else. I forget where you said we were, but how have you gone about building clients? How do you get clients? How do you get most of your business?
I get the bulk of my clients. I do a lot of speaking. I work on legislation for bankruptcy at the national level, and I was privileged to write the only amicus to a farm bankruptcy case that went to the Supreme Court back in 2011. It was argued and decided in 2012. Then back to work with Congress on changing it to do what we wanted. So a lot of word of mouth. I work with a radio broadcaster to talk about farm economic issues and business issues and what the farmers ought to be looking at to protect themselves.
Yeah. Does your office use social media at all to market itself?
My understanding is that my son has a Facebook page for us. I've never been there.
So you're not a social media person?
Absolutely not.
No. Good. Anything else that you kind of want to talk about that you're using or wanted to highlight in terms of your practice?
Not really.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your taking the time to talk with me. It's been a pleasure.
Yep.
Thanks.